Okay, we're going to get started. We've had some interesting topics over the last few weeks. I've gotten some good positive feedback, and I wanted to, because it's been a while, just open up for questions. Maybe questions on the things we talked about, or whatever's on your mind. In fact, when I was there in person, we had a few people even ask questions when we were finished. So some of those things might be good to bring up while we're here. So just raise your hand. Let me know what question you have. Remember, my answers are just my answers, tend to be through Eastern philosophy, martial arts related. You always have to come up with your own answers. Hopefully, this ongoing pursuit of self-understanding. So, open for questions. And the good doctor's in the house. Yep. Hello, sir. Did I see a hand? Yes, sir, Mr. Ahles.
Thank you, Shifu. Sorry if I get emotional, but my dog, who was 15, died last week, and it's been very, emotional week. And I was just wondering what the Eastern philosophy on like death was, what they believe, and how they respond to it.
Okay. So, well, for one thing, they wear white at a funeral. Think about that. That in itself is more brightness, it's like a celebration of life. And I'm not going to say I'm an expert on the Eastern philosophy of death, but I do know that, and that's an important perspective in itself, rather than it being this dreary, negative perspective. It's more of a positive crossing over to another realm type of perspective. And it's interesting that you bring this up this week, that this happened, because we just met somebody built a bed for us from hand by hand, and he has some pretty interesting big dogs. Let's just say they're big, like huskies. I don't want to say too much because I'm recording here. But and I think about that because bigger dogs only live so long. The smaller dogs tend to live longer, and the bigger dogs, one medium large dog I had, they tend to lose their legs. I don't know if your dog lost their legs, their hips, hyperplasia and things, and it can be really tough because that's really like part of the family. And it just came to mind yesterday in a conversation how my uncle had this beautiful German Shepherd. And when that German Shepherd passed at about 15, 16, he was old. It broke my uncle's heart to the point where he said he'll never have another dog. Now, let's not look at the dog as necessarily being so different than our lives or any lives. It's what you connect to in your life that brings meaning. And no loss is easy. We had a question last week about loss. This was one of the ones that was after we turned off everything here. It came up. And it was, I'm going to give you the same answer because you weren't there for it. And this answer is the same answer regardless of whatever challenge you're up against. And I also think it's one of the most difficult challenges I've had to get students to understand. No matter what's happening, no matter what challenge you're facing, no matter how bad things seem to be, no matter what decision you have to make, go out and practice first. oh, it seems like such an inappropriate time. Oh, I don't have time for that. I have to do this or I have to do that. And then we think that the practice is just when it's convenient or when we feel good. This is the wrong approach. This practice makes the life better. It makes you better. It will center you, and it will allow you to come from less of an emotional place, but more of a, when your circulation's improved, and I don't mean just exercise, it's also your mind is more focused, both together. So your body is more relaxed deeply. You're going to deal with any challenge much easier, better than if you don't practice. And that's the key point. So in the worst times, the worst phone call, the worst news, the very first thing you should do is go practice. At least that's my recommendation, and that's been my experience. And then you have to still deal with it, but you'll deal with it from a much better place. Now, it's been many years, but when we lost our daughter, just short of 3 years old, one of the things that happened, a lot of interesting things, spiritual things happened, but one of the things that happened that came to our attention was a sign, a little sign we had in her room. And it just jumped out at us where it said, celebrate life. You see, when we have a difficult loss, we focus so much on the loss, on the missing them. But you'll be better able to put your mind where you want if, one, you practice, and then two, you face it. And then when you're facing it, you can focus your mind on the good things. Celebrate the life. So in the East, they wear white. They're celebrating the life. They're actually focusing on what they had, not what they no longer have. It's difficult. Of course it's difficult. We're human. We feel what we feel. But the question really pertains to how do we get through this, right? It's a big loss. But the focus has to be on, what's the truth? What's now? Your experience is without. And you can focus on without. And I actually also, may sound contradictory, but I'm going to also, well, let me say this with some caveat. When we had the biggest loss, a parent losing a young child, it's tough, to say the least. People were putting antidepressants in my wife's pocket, and she never took them. But this is how people deal with things. They want to take a pill. And let me tell you how I dealt with it. I cried like you wouldn't believe. I bawled my eyes out when those emotions came up, and I had the right time, right moment. I would just let it flow. And so it never made me sick mentally or emotionally. Because reality is emotions have a physical component. So when you have what you may consider a horrible experience of loss, I'm going to suggest you need to feel it 100%. Don't hide it. Don't stuff it down. Don't, act like it's not bothering you. Even you said, you might get emotional. That's a good thing. We don't want to be a basket case in front of other people, so you kind of find the right time and place, but go for a walk, be alone, and cry. Let it flow. This will be very healthy for your getting through it. You're supposed to mourn a loss, and you have to allow yourself to feel it 100%. So if you're taking a pill that makes you not feel the depression, well, what are you doing with these emotions? You're stuffing them down, and they literally will get stuck inside of you, and they are making you sick through your life. Let it flow. Cry if you need to. Feel what you need to feel. Take some time off if you need to take some time off. But you have to deal with it not hide it, not ignore it. And again, your practice at that time will help you. Hope that's helpful. Another question. Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Can you hear me? I just wanted to support what you said about people being sad or depressed and then being given antidepressants. I can't tell you how many patients that I interviewed who are on tons of psychiatric medications for depression. They want to be admitted to psychiatry. And then when you listen to them, you're like, yeah, you have a lot to be depressed. You're not crazy. You have some bad stuff going on that you need to work on and needs to be fixed. So it's true that antidepressant pills are not always the only solution.
Thank you, Doc.
Yep.
Okay, so another hand. Ms. Beaumont.
Me. I was just going to add that one time I was very upset about something, and I went to the doctor and I got some kind of antidepressant, and it dulled my senses, but it didn't really make the problem go away.
Mm.
So the next time I got upset, a week later, I went up to the Y and I swam 40 laps as fast as I could, went and had one tequila sunrise and went to bed. And when I woke up, it was as if nothing had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like the use of antidepressants because I don't think they really do the trick. Even if you take them, that was my experience.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to add that we live and grow. You have a challenge, you get through it, actually through it, live it, experience it, feel it. You'll be better for the next time. You'll be able to deal with things much better next time. So those who turn to the antidepressants and other things like that to deal with what's going on in their minds, this is weakening the person. And I loved how you just said it didn't make the problem go away. Exactly. You still got to deal with it. And frankly, those drugs have a side effect of raising suicide rates. So I don't understand how you can give it to help avoid someone wanting to take their life when actually it increases the rate of both homicides and suicides. You know, look that stuff up. Counterproductive. And it's sort of like the, you know, the tea kettle boiling over. Eventually it's going to, it's like running up a hill, you know, every day you run up a hill, the first time it might feel like it's going to kill you. And then little by little, it gets easier and easier. You know, if you do physical work, your physical body is going to change over weeks and months. So it becomes easier and easier. It's going to develop. Your mental and emotional mind is going to develop if it's challenged. People who have gone through challenges are much stronger than those who haven't. Or the child who was overprotected by the parent. You know, these are the kids who, when they're a little more on their own, even as young adults, and they have their own problems to deal with, they can't deal with them. They can't handle the challenge. They don't know what it's like because someone else always fixes things for them. And I'm going to give the opinion that we have a society based on a lot of that. Somebody's going to come to save you. Somebody's going to come to save us. I'm a big believer in looking in the mirror and doing everything possible to save myself first. And then as I save myself and strengthen myself, I'm going to be able to help my family. And if I can help my family, then maybe I can help some neighbors, and maybe it continues into the community. You got to think about that. It's like you become strong and then that strength can spread. But if you become weak and you don't deal with things, then how can you ever help anyone, yourself, your family, and certainly anything beyond that. And then a parent who thinks that way, think about what kind of children they're going to raise. And so generation to generation getting weaker and weaker. We need challenges. And it's actually another huge benefit of martial arts. Because, decades ago, they created a ranking system. And so you have goals to strive for, right? And if it's real, if the challenge is real and you have to change to reach the next level, then you are growing. So even if your life is good, you are creating this challenge to strengthen your body, your mind, your emotions, stabilizing emotions, and even expanding your awareness of spirit when you're truly challenged. And then if it was done right, if it was real, when life knocks you down, you will be able to get up better than most. I guarantee that. Another question. Okay, Miss Bowman again. No, you have to unmute.
Okay. I'm going the other way. I mean, I do the Qigong, but the actual physical combat, I have been so not ever experienced that except for fighting with my brother, that I mean, anybody could flip me in nothing flat. So the physical combat of it, I'm completely at a loss, I think. I mean, I know what you say, you can, if you move quickly, you can surprise somebody, and I have one kick that moves quickly, but that's it. So I think that I need some sort of practice in physical combat.
Okay, I understand you saying that, but it's true. Particularly for a younger person coming up through martial arts, you're going to have the physical fighting. And it's true. Knowing how to defend yourself is a very practical skill to have, but most of defending yourself is based on awareness. Most of defending yourself is not putting yourself in a bad situation. It's understanding to avoid these kind of dangerous situations. Yeah. So I'm not going to say, do you mind sharing your age, Ms. Belmont?
81.
Yeah, 81. How much fighting you want to do physically at this point?
Not much, but I just like to know if I got in a situation, I'd like to have some options.
Okay. And this is where awareness, if you were really interested in that kind of a thing, then it's awareness of also your surroundings where nobody's going to surprise you, but also your surroundings, like what can you use even for a weapon, for example. You can imagine scenarios. What if somebody broke in my house? Each of you think of it right now. Where would you go? What could you grab to defend yourself with? If you don't have a firearm on hand, and a lot of people up there probably don't, what could you grab? Let's say you're in the bathroom and somebody broke in the house and you can hear them. What's the first thing you could grab? What's the first thing you could do? So these are mental exercises you can practice. What could you possibly use? You're outside. Could you drop and grab some dirt and throw it in their eyes? You see, my mind's doing this so long that right away I think of a lot of different things I can do. There's people who keep little pebbles and dirt in their pocket, and then somebody tries to get you, you just take it out, throw it right in their eyes, and then you get out of there. Because the goal, this is the biggest mistake in martial arts and self-defense. See, I'm going to elaborate on what I meant also about rank and the challenge, because even Qigong can create this challenge, all right? But real self-defense, the goal is to get out of the situation. It's not like in the movies. You're not trying to fight. And even the best fighter and smartest, if you had no choice and had to fight, your goal still is to get out of the situation. So how quickly can you get the drop on them so that they're done somehow? Either they're disabled, or they're blinded, or they're hurt enough where you can get out of there and they don't want to bother with you. because you're not trying to win a fight. You're trying to get out of the situation. So how quickly, just a good shot to the nose, they get close to you. Somebody has to get close to you to physically hurt you. So a very powerful shot to the nose, we do the palm strike. Take a palm and throw it into the nose. And then for at least momentarily, they're going to be disoriented because this is a good target. And you get out of there. So it's the mentality of, how do I get out of this situation? And if this is a concern for you, fear doesn't do you a darn bit of good. Prepare. What could I do? I recommend, again, you read my book, right, Miss Beaumont? Unmute yourself.
I should read it again.
Read the addendum, because that's going to be what I'm talking about for self-defense. It's not teaching you how to fight. It's teaching you aspects and perspective and examples that really come from a number of sources through my life in how to approach self-defense. And I think it will be very helpful and build confidence so you know what to do. Because the basics are there. If you want to go further, we can discuss it further. But there is the, there is the perspective of, okay, if everything else falls short, what can I do? Yeah, you can throw it, you can have dirt and rocks in your pocket. That's a weapon. It's just, you don't have to carry a knife or a gun. You can carry that, and then you get that in their eyes. You ever get a little speck of something in your eyes?
Yeah.
You know how that feels. So right there is something, right? And like I said too, what could you grab? Is there something you could grab to swing? I remember long ago, I learned a story of a woman who walked in on a burglar raping her daughter. Maybe she was 12, 13. And this woman was half the size of the guy, and she jumped on his back. And the guy threw her off against the wall, and she actually broke her arm. And she continued to fight this guy off and took a lamp and started slamming them in the head. And she was just not a victim, is the best way I can put it. With a broken arm, she fought this guy off and got him to run out of there. So there are many people, well, let's put it this way. There are more people in this world, far more people in this world, who have successfully defended themselves without ever learning martial arts. Far more than those who have successfully defended themselves and practice martial arts. We're talking the physical part here. Because martial arts trained right should keep you out of the physical confrontation. But the physical confrontation comes down to your mental fortitude, your unwillingness to be a victim. So when it gets to that point, it's becoming an animal, to be frank. There's this no way, my life is worth more than this situation. Because most victims are just that. They give themselves up. They hope the other person is going to have enough compassion to not hurt them. Let's say a real bad case where somebody gets pulled into a van or something, and you hardly fight because they're so much stronger than you, and you just sit in the van and you just hope that things are going to turn out when you get to the other place. And the truth is that the second location can never be better than the first. So you should be kicking, screaming, scratching, biting, everything possible to not get put in there. Now, of course, if you're at that point, you already made a big mistake, because how did they get the jump on you? That was the awareness part. If you walk around always, everywhere, practicing awareness, you look around cars, it's like, you're not mindless walking around looking like you have a bag over your head, so you're easy to pick on, easy to become a victim. It's noticeable that you're very alert and aware, and so a criminal is far less likely, some have said as much as 98% less likely to choose you. They're going to choose somebody else. So that martial arts already keeps you out of that. So yeah, I included this in my book. An example I saw from years ago, they put in a prison a video of a mall, if I'm not mistaken, and all the different criminals in prison would choose who they would pick for a victim. Like, who would they go after maybe later to steal from or something. And 98% of them pick the same people. And then they continued to study and document, well, what is it about that person? Why are you picking them? And they had all the different things. It's like the way you move. Clearly, the way you're not paying attention, you look like you're distracted. But the way you move, so somebody who moves with more grace, someone who moves with more certainty, looking like they know where they're going, all of that is going to make them not choose you. But then there's some people that look a little awkward, you know, maybe a little less coordinated, you know, all of these things point to, plus the you know, not paying attention. That's the most obvious one. They look like easy to beat, basically, you know, they're going to choose the weak. So one of the greatest aspects of martial arts leading to good self-defense is because you should carry yourself with much more grace. You should carry yourself with much more certainty. You should be more mindful and aware. And all of that shows up to the person watching you. Just an athlete in general, a dancer is going to be less likely to be randomly chosen out of a crowd, because just the way they carry themselves, they look like they can do something if necessary. And there's the mentality of the criminal that, you know, they don't want to get caught. They don't want to get hurt, because even if they don't end up in prison, they end up to be a victim to someone else, because now they have a problem. They're physically injured or something. So they don't want to deal with all those things. So they're going to find something easier. Someone who's like, you know, it's like the kid in school who gets bullied, walking through the halls, looking at the floor. They're easy to pick on. Don't be that person. Look straight ahead, look confident, look like you know where you're going. And when someone bothers you, laugh at them and don't make it act like it bothers you. And then you're no fun to pick on. That's the same thing I tell to children with bullies. So the same the bully would pick on is the same the criminal would choose. And then, you know, most rapes and a lot of crime is like somebody you know. They know you somehow. So there's a lot of little things you can do to protect yourself that way. It's like, you know, some of the obvious things. You don't leave your doors unlocked, right? Because some people are just lazy. They leave their car door unlocked, and then someone could sit in the car and wait for you. There's all these little things that we do or don't do. You know, don't give your address away. Don't let people know you're going to go on vacation. You know, make sure someone's collecting your mail. I mean, how many areas you can think of all these things that would allow somebody who's watching to see there's an opportunity coming. So those who are concerned about their safety really should educate themselves on all the possibilities. So those are some of them, and I think you can probably think of more as well. But to repeat, the goal, well, your first line of self-defense is awareness. And if anything gets crossed where you have to physically defend yourself, the goal is to get out of the situation. I'll give you one more. A realtor, a woman realtor, showing a home. One man, one woman maybe. She needs to go, when she goes in the house, she should make sure he goes ahead of her. She always keeps herself between the exit and the client. It's little things. Because your goal, see, if she's so focused on making the sale, oh, I have a chance today, I can make a sale, and she's so dopey walking around, putting herself in the rooms, the guy could push her in the room and do what he wants to her. There's nothing she can do about it. So you put yourself in a position. Your phone may be in a way where it's a quick one button emergency somehow, and also the exit. You're always ready to get to the exit. And of course, even smarter, people know where you are. You don't go there without telling anybody. And even, you know, even further, you're never alone in a house with one client. You somehow make it so there's multiple people there. There's a lot of things, if you think ahead, it's those who don't, and they just assume everything's going to be okay. They are the easy victims. Another question. Let's get Mr. McEwen in here. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sifu. I have a nutrition question for you.
Okay.
What does it really mean to eat fruits and vegetables that are in season only? Does that still apply today when you can import fruits and vegetables from South America? I mean, people that live in a climate that doesn't really change all year round, there's no real seasons. Is there a myth to that, or is that the truth to that?
No, it's not a myth. And literally, you just what's available, what season. It's not. The reason why you would ask a question like that is because we've made it so convenient to get things from all over the world.
Yes, exactly.
But there's nothing natural about that. In fact, there's nothing natural. This is one of those things that's causing all the problems for people. So the healthiest way to live is in line with nature. So if you put yourself back to a time when we were hunter-gatherers, what could you eat? That's the real answer to your question. And regardless of the science or technology or transportation or refrigeration, everything that we've made easier for us and convenient for us, if you're allowing yourself to get away from natural laws. So the answer to your question is a principle. What would be available? What would I eat if I was a hunter-gatherer? Because that's our physiology. So think of the meat you eat. People say meat's bad for you, nothing. I eat so much meat, you'd be shocked. But I eat it in its most natural state. I don't eat processed meat. I don't eat sandwich meat. I don't eat bread. You know, if I have that stuff, to me, it's like cake. You know, it's like extra dessert or something. Enjoyment, not for my meal. My staples is the hunter-gatherer. So meat, fats, naturally occurring from a healthy animal, no hormones, no pesticides, no crap in the meat. And it's a healthy, happy animal out in the pasture. So even the vegetation, the animal ate it and it gets into their meat and in their organs, but we don't tend to be much of an organ eating society, but that's actually what hunter-gatherers would do. That most nutrients are there. So there's ways to also get that. Like liver should be eaten at least once a week to get some of the nutrients that you can't get other places. And then the vegetation, you know, like wild edibles versus, you know, what's a wild edible? It grows naturally in the ground that fits that vegetation. We use chemicals and plant things where they don't belong, and we grow them, and then they're devoid of any nutrients. Or we over farm an area, for example, poor rotation, using things like NPK, the chemicals that make things grow, and it's an empty food. When things grow where they're naturally occurring, it's because the environment supports that. You eat that, it's going to be much more full of nutrients. So and I will tell you this, you can live off of grass-fed meat and grass-fed butter, meat and fat. Not meat alone, you need to get the fat. Most of your calories should come from fat. The Eskimos would eat the whale blubber, right? They'd be like 70% of their calories came from whale blubber, from fat. And they don't find any, they lived to 70s, you know, they had the average age like we did, even as hard as their lives were. At least they seem hard to us. And they don't find heart disease when they do research on those people. So what's really true? The studies I've done, archaeological digs, everything I read, the work that other people did. And that's what I've come to the conclusion that, which is considered consistent with Bagua principles, meaning learning and trying to live closest to Tao, which is literally living closest to nature. And you can go and look at the hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of opinions on what to eat, nutrition, and how to eat. And it's like, all we have to really do is go back to the most natural way we lived 1,000 years ago, really. More than 1,000 years ago, because we started agriculture 10,000 years ago. So I say the hunter-gatherer is the best diet, from the healthiest animals and organic, no pesticides and other chemicals in the food, and grown in the right place in the right time. This would be ideal. Now, can you be that ideal? You might be asking, well, I don't have access to that. Okay. But you get the best, freshest food from the produce aisle, not prepared foods, right? Eat real food, meaning real food is one ingredient, like an egg is real food. Then, collard, the dark leafy greens, it's a real food. You start mixing it with ingredients, put it in a box or a bag, etc., and there's ingredients you don't even know what that stuff is. This is getting away from real food. Even ham has 5 ingredients. Think about that. It's like, oh, that's meat. It's good. No, it's got 5 ingredients: sugar and salt and how they cure it. No, that's a processed meat. That's a processed food already. So the real answer to that question is simplify it and just eat food in its most natural occurring state without all these ingredients and chemicals added. And then if you really want to be healthy and you want to also enjoy your food, the flavor of your food, learn how to use real spices, herbs and spices, and make it taste good too. I'm not picky that way. I eat like filling my car with gas. My car has no gas, it won't drive. If I eat in a way to refuel myself and have different kinds of meals when I just want to enjoy my food, but my normal food is just like refueling myself so I can function at a high level, clear, stable emotions, and feel strong. That's very different than when you're just, what's the easiest, most convenient, and the tastiest, and it's just, my daughter came up eating really good, and the other day, because she's gets with her teenage friends, and they start eating some fast food, and she comes home and she felt all sick and she was throwing up. Because that's what would happen to me if I ate some of those fast food places. That food it's like my body recognizes it's not food. And I think that's one of the most interesting things you can experience for yourself, that your body knows how to be healthy. You just have to give it the right stuff so it can be. It's like the building blocks. If you want to build a house, you can't just, give the workers cardboard. Doesn't matter how good they are, it's not going to be a very, very strong house. Foods like that. We literally are what we eat, and you will feel very different if you eat right. And the original question with the seasons, that's the most ideal. I'm going to keep it a little simple in that respect. Like when it's cold, don't eat a lot of fruit. And anyway, we shouldn't eat a lot of fruit, in my opinion. Fruit should be fairly lower amount, but it's going to be more so because it's cold for the body. More so in the summer. In the winter, eat more warming foods like the soups and the meats, right? The more sustaining foods and the fats to keep you warm. Whereas you eat lighter food in the summertime. So that's a little seasonal advice. Other question. Maybe one more. Mr. Ahles. Oops, what happened here? Oh, are you, Mr. McEwen, are you muted? You are muted. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ahles.
Thank you. I read something, you were trying to prove a point years ago. It was either Penn Station or Grand Central Terminal. You were trying to prove a point to someone and meditated. Could you elaborate on that story?
What an interesting question. Yes. Well, let me throw it back at you and ask you why you're asking that first.
I just thought it was interesting because in me personally, like in places like that, I try to be aware of my surroundings. So I would never want to shut all those stimuli out, especially Grand Central and Penn Station. You have people looking for a sucker every minute of the day, But
Okay.
I know you had somebody keeping watch. So
yeah, exactly.
That's why.
It was to prove a point based on the busyness around me. But what you said makes a lot of sense. That's exactly how you should live. What we talked about earlier with awareness. Yeah, absolutely. Wide angle vision, and see everything around you and look for anomalies. what stands out. You know, if everybody's walking one direction and one guy's kind of standing looking at people, that guy could be a problem. It's sort of that mind of that true awareness where something stands out. Like if everybody's laughing and someone else looks nervous and sweaty, something's wrong there. Or if somebody's laughing and everybody else is serious, it's like that person stands out and you have to look, why does that person stand out? Something's up there. But it was just to prove a point that regardless of your environment, if you have good control of your mind, you can meditate. That's the point that was trying to make. But I will also say that's sitting meditation. That's closing the eyes and actually being able to not be affected by outside noise and distractions. But we're supposed to, let's call sitting meditation the basics. Teaching your mind to get a habit of lowering the brainwaves, for example, right? To be able to live in a calmer state. You can go very deep when you sit in more of a formal meditation, but our practice should be all a moving meditation. So now you're learning how to move with that mind state. And then, like you said, you want to be more aware of your surroundings. So you can practice meditation in that crowd with your eyes open and paying attention and feeling the ground and calming the breath and living in this world in a more meditative state. Primarily alpha, if you know the brain waves of beta, alpha, theta, delta. Delta is like a deep sleep. Theta is a real meditation level. Sometimes you even reach delta. But maintaining consciousness at that level is more difficult, obviously, because you'd be out. Then alpha is where we're supposed to live, but most people are in beta and higher, and that's the easy victim because they're too worried about everything. They're thinking. It's the overthinking, and so they're so distracted. But just going into wide-angle vision and completely paying attention to your surroundings and your this moment is going to drop your brain waves. You're already in a more of a meditative state. And so reality is develop the habit, strengthen the mind's ability to be on one thing, to be in the moment through sitting meditation and go deep and have the experience of what depth is of the mind. And then take it into your everyday life, working to stay in meditation all the time, as much as possible. So you're right. In that situation, you should be paying attention. But to go back to why I did it, I just wanted to prove that I could. In other words, I'm not sitting there scared. Yes, someone was looking out for me. And that's also what I mean. It's good to be aware that this is a pretty stupid thing to do by myself. Okay, real quick. Remember the components of meditation, any style, anywhere in the world. One of the most basic ones, one of the most basic keys is quiet environment. Comfortable position, quiet environment. What if you don't have that? What if you're not comfortable? Without the ability to control your mind, you will be extremely uncomfortable and suffer more than someone who can control their mind. And now I want to think of a horrible example, but let's just say when people were made slaves, or maybe the Holocaust, where they put people in train cars and just stuffed them in there like cattle. You think about how you survive something terrible like that. You basically have to be able to leave your body. So the strongest minds got through that, and the weaker minds couldn't, because they can't handle it, and maybe they passed because of it. So my point of bringing that up is how strong we are and what we're capable of. We don't really know until we're really challenged. And so the ability to almost leave the body in times of suffering, you're there, but you're not there. You're not focused on the suffering. It's no different than you get hurt You can focus on the pain, you're going to amplify it and feel it more. Or you ignore the pain, you take your breath, you bring yourself inside, and the pain dissipates. And if you can make the pain dissipate, your circulation will improve. And you'll actually heal faster and be able to deal with the situation if it's a dangerous situation. So that's all mind. How powerful is your mind? There is nothing better than to train your mind that's going to help your life. Let's go to meditation.